Your human moral system breaks.
This brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful, section of the argument. The 3 specific ways Nushuz argues that secular ethics isn't just an alternative, but is actually a superior foundation.
The first point is the most direct.
Yeah.
It's that secular ethics is genuinely moral.
Because it purifies the motivation.
Exactly. You take away the cosmic carrot and stick heaven and hell, and you're left with the real reason to be good. You do it for its own sake.
So the person who doesn't murder because they fear God isn't really moral, they're just cautious.
They're risk-averse. They're self-interested. But the person who doesn't murder because they fundamentally value human life and understand the suffering it would cause, that person is truly moral. And if they lose their belief in God tomorrow, they're still not going to murder anyone, because their morality is rooted in reality, not reward.
Let's apply that to something like charity.
A great example. A religious person might give to charity with the motivation of getting a tenfold reward in the afterlife. It's a kind of spiritual investment. It's transactional. A secular person gives to charity motivated by the immediate, verifiable reduction of suffering in another human being. There's no expectation of cosmic payback. It's non-transactional, and therefore it's a more pure form of altruism.
Okay, the second point is huge for human progress. Secular ethics can admit mistakes and evolve.
This is the absolute game changer. Religious moral systems claim to be divine and perfect. That's their biggest weakness. It makes them rigid. If a text from the 7th century says something, who are you to question it? You must simply submit.
So our understanding of the world grows, but the text is frozen.
Exactly. Our understanding of human dignity, of psychology, of rights, it all evolves. But the text is stuck, reflecting the moral norms of 7th century Arabia.
And Nushuz points to major moral progress that happened in opposition to religious doctrine, like the abolition of slavery.
We have to detail this. Slavery was permitted, it was regulated, it was normalized in many of the world's holy books. When the abolitionists in the 18th and 19th centuries argued against it, their best arguments weren't theological, they were secular. They were about universal human dignity, about shared consciousness. They had to appeal to a moral law higher than the written scripture to win.
It was a victory for human reason over divine decree.
Precisely. And we see that chasm so clearly with other issues. Nushuz uses the example of child marriage, specifically the documented marriage of a 9-year-old girl to a 53-year-old man.
Which was accepted then.
Accepted and recorded. But today, we universally condemn it. What changed? Not the text.
Our understanding changed.
Our scientific and moral understanding changed. We learned about child development, psychology, consent, trauma. It was evidence from science that proved the profound, verifiable harm of that practice. Secular ethics can look at that new evidence and say, we were wrong. This causes suffering. We must change.
So moral progress isn't moral relativism. It's not anything goes.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's saying the core principle, reduce harm and promote flourishing, is constant. But our application of that principle gets better as our knowledge gets better. Secular ethics lets us use all the tools we have, reason, empathy, science, to apply that principle, freeing us from the limitations of a 1,400-year-old text.
And the third superiority Nushuz identifies is that secular ethics requires you to think.
Divine command theory is, well, it's intellectually lazy. The answer to every complex moral problem is, because God said so. That's the end of the discussion. It demands obedience, not thought.
Whereas secular ethics demands you own your choices.
It forces engagement. It makes you use frameworks like consequentialism, where you judge an action by its results. You're forced to ask the hard questions. Will this policy actually reduce suffering in the real world? What are the unintended consequences?
So instead of just following a rule, you have to be accountable for the outcome.
You have to use evidence. You have to weigh trade-offs. It moves you from asking, am I following the rules, to asking, am I actually making the world a better or less painful place? That intellectual accountability is what was missing from the dogma.
So the new compass that Nushuz found rests on these 3 pillars that survive the loss of faith.
Right. Empathy, which is our biological wiring to recognize the suffering of others. Consequentialism, which is the rational method for reducing that suffering. And the golden rule, the simple, powerful recognition that other people are just as real as you are, a principle that predates every single holy book.
And this leads to an unexpected kind of freedom.
It really does. Without the constant anxiety about divine judgment, you're free to do good for its own sake. Without the certainty of a fixed text, you're forced to engage with complexity, which makes you a more thoughtful and compassionate person. The moral circle actually gets bigger because it's no longer about your tribe versus theirs. It's about all conscious beings.
And that